Now, we all know that small businesses and family-owned businesses are the backbone of regional communities, but they are facing their fair share of challenges. Paul, you obviously represent thousands of regional businesses. What do we need to do to make sure that they are sustainable going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Good to be here. Probably the first thing businesses are looking for now is certainty, and it's probably the hardest to find as well. Off the backdrop of rising costs across the board, and we've seen it through the latest budget, and then energy prices going up, particularly in this region where you have to travel, so petrol and diesel and gas weighs heavily. Those costs are baked in there as well, and supply of talent is difficult. It's not just a regional Victoria piece, it's a metropolitan Victoria piece as well. So they're the issues, and they've been well documented. Throw in housing on top of that as well. So what we've now got to do is start looking forward to solutions to say, how do we fix it? What can we do? What do we need to do to think outside the square so that the small to medium businesses get that certainty that you need? Governments need to play a role. And are as actively as they can, and the larger businesses that are really the feeder to the small to medium businesses need to play a role in there as well. And ultimately, the ongoing prosperity of the state is a responsibility that we all have. Business plays its part. 90% of employment is through the private sector, and our view is that there's no problem in the world that can be solved without the private sector involvement. So let's think through that in terms of the certainty lens. That will then parlay into confidence, and as that starts to come back, we'll be flying as a state again.
Great. And now, Joe, obviously North East water security is critical, right? We're looking at, a growing population, ageing infrastructure, and also climate disasters. What are you guys doing to plan for the future? What planning is underway for those?
Yeah. Thanks, Jade. And it's great to hear, can I just say, Paul talk about partnering with private enterprise, because that's some of the work that we're doing at North East Water. But I probably want to share with you that we're transforming the way that we do business at North East Water. We're aiming to be more adaptive to the changes that we're seeing all the time. So I think we'd all agree that since COVID, we're all... there's a range of major challenges that just keep coming at us in terms of, you mentioned climate change, ageing infrastructure is something that's really important that we're focusing on at the moment, and growth is also something that I know is very important to people here across the region, so that we can how we support growth. But at North East Water, we're transforming how we do things. We're planning for the future, so we're investing heavily in new infrastructure. So we're investing over $380 million in an 8-year price period from 2018 to 2026. So what that looks like, we have gone from an organisation that previously would spend around about $20–25 million a year on capital investment for our infrastructure. We're expanding that to $75 million this year, $75 the next and the next, and $75 the year after that. And then as we move into our next pricing period, that will probably look like something like anything up to $500 million in terms of infrastructure. Now, you might say, well, how are you going to prioritise? How do you know where you need to put your investment dollars? Well, we're undertaking master planning. It's actually quite a unique program. We're master planning for all 39 towns across our 20,000 square kilometre region. So we always want to be, from now, in the position to be proactive in the future, to continually look at these challenges, continually look at growth, so we can support development and growth. We can support the sustainability of the region. We can support our businesses, or continue to support our businesses, and how we can work in partnership with them to do things smarter, reduce costs and for our customers, and contribute to the prosperity of the region.
Desiree, you have a small business, you have a beauty salon. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, especially in the hangover from COVID?
Yeah, look, Jade, I think the biggest thing that we found is it's pure and simple, it's cash flow. People were in lockdown for such a long time. There was border closures. there's so many things that happened in that period of time, and people are still struggling from that. The biggest thing we're seeing is the uptake of, Afterpay, Zip Pay, all those sorts of things. People aren't ready to let go of those services because, it's self-care saves. However, they're having to turn to those sorts of things to get the payments made, which is really sad. But it's one of those things they're not willing to let go. So they're definitely looking at different cash flow means because they just can't survive at the moment, which is really tough.
It is hard. Now, Paul, one of the things I also wanted to touch on with you is, I guess, the difference in technology and connectivity between the metropolitan areas and the regions. Why is it important to make sure that the regions essentially aren't left worse off and do actually have access to these opportunities?
Yes, we've heard a lot about the black spots, the slower speed of internet in regional Victoria. We shouldn't accept it. It shouldn't be there. If we don't have the same experience in regional Victoria that we do in metropolitan Victoria, the gulf between the opportunities in the state starts to broaden. We're part of a global economy now, and the way we stay connected is through the mobile services and the internet-based services. If we're going to inspire more entrepreneurs to enter through that digital frame and therefore talk to the rest of the world, we can't have a situation where that cuts out or doesn't operate at the speed that it needs to be able to connect to the rest of the world. I look at that in terms of equity, and we shouldn't accept the difference in equity in regional Victoria versus the metropolitan side. If you then take that further, particularly in the farming communities that really keep the regional Victorian marketplace alive, the technology, and we've heard about a grant from the Deputy Premier this morning to one of the technology companies. Well, technology companies can only work if the internet and cellular speeds are at a level where they're absolutely reliable to do it. Otherwise, you face a situation where the tractor stops working because it can't connect in. We need to stay connected, and what we've learnt, I guess, through that COVID period is that we can stay connected through digital technology as well. If you then parlay that further into how medical services are going to be provided, into the future it'll be a blend of in-person and digital connectivity as well to get the best treatment around the world. You can get that diagnosis largely digitally now as well. So I think closing the gap and keeping communities connected is going to be a blend of in-person as well as technology, and we can't accept the difference in speeds between different areas if one is slower than another. It needs to be uniform, and as we get it to uniform, opportunities will arrive from the next generation through to the elder generation as well.